So there was a time in my teenage years where I trained Kung Fu, and at the end of each training session, we would all sit down and meditate for 20 minutes. And as I was sitting there, I can remember that I had this empty looking. And at the time, I thought this was normal. Later on in life, I wanted to have this empty looking again, but it wasn't there. So as I was sitting there, I was just looking. I had my eyes open, but I wasn't looking at something. It didn't even feel like I was doing this. It was like being being like a mountain. And it's probably because at that time I didn't have such a strong artificial intelligence in my mind. That's a weird way to put it, because the mind is the artificial intelligence. But you understand what I mean. There's this entity. It seems like it's an entity. It's you, it's I, the person, in the head, and it's talking and it's calculating all the time. It's just thinking. It seems to live the life of this body. That's what I mean when I'm talking about the artificial intelligence. And it wasn't there. There was just this empty looking. It wasn't something special at the moment. In this age, in my teenage years, I didn't have a clue about awakening and all that stuff. All this knowledge and wisdom around this topic. I was just sitting there and I was free from knowledge. I wasn't doing anything. It's like being lazy. Then as life went on, I became my own programming. Of course, I had programming before because I was already in my teenage years, but it became worse when I got 18 years old. It really got worse. So I was trying to become something in particular, and I was trying to behave like this dream character that I was imagining myself to be. And there was just so much suffering. And there was another time in my life where my ego just collapsed because it was just too much. And there was again this empty looking, but it was deeper than that. It was really like a deep state of being in which no personality was needed to function. There was just this natural intelligence, which is already all there is, functioning. It's just the body doing what it's doing. But later, when I was around 18, 19, 20, this artificial intelligence got really bad. Like I became like a villain, like a bad person actually. At least that's how I saw myself at the time. That was just my identity. And I was desperately trying to get back. but I thought I can't because I had this idea of time. And I thought I am already this, so there's no way for me to go back. Of course, there's no way to go back. Um, but the good message was that this was all just happening in my imagination. It was all a dream. So this identity was never real, actually. It was just a mask. It's actually just a dream. It's like when you are waking up from a dream and you know now you're in a real world, right? And the thing was, as I was walking through the day, imagining this dream of being this particular kind of person, this unsatisfied person, um, I didn't notice that this is a dream still continuing, even though the body seems to be awake. It's like I'm not dreaming, I'm not in bed sleeping, but I'm dreaming. I'm thinking a dream. Waking up simply means to recognize that what you think of yourself is not real. It's imagination. So I recognized that. But it wasn't just as simple as that. I know for some people it's just, and they're awake. But I had some very deep beliefs that I had to get rid of. Not by doing something to get rid of them, but by allowing them to become apparent, by allowing them to become obvious. So they're in the light, and then I was seeing like it's just imagination. In the end, there is no knowledge left. What you are cannot be described because it, it it can be described. Everything can be described, but if you would describe your true being, then you would create a new concept, and it's all about letting go of concepts and beliefs and knowledge. So you can find out that you and reality still exists even though there's no knowledge. Even though you don't have to think. And you will see that the way the body works, the way the mind works, the brain works, interactions work, it's all happening by itself. The thinker was never really needed because it was never there. It's just an arising of thoughts creating the illusion that they have something to do with you. And those thoughts are trying to attain something. Even in, spirituality, try to attain awakening in the future. There is no awakening in the future. It's just a letting go. But you cannot let go. Your natural state is already pure and free. So by relaxing, not by waiting, but by being, everything will fall apart. And in my experience, there were extreme negative emotions that were coming up. And that process is not done yet. So I cannot say that this process is something that will ever end. But what I can say is that by trying to end that process, you stop it. This process is something that is happening in the relative world, and there's you cannot turn this into a goal, really. There's just this freedom of knowledge. You don't have to know how to get rid of it. So if you could just right now say to yourself, I don't need to seek. I don't need to wake up. I don't need to do this, do that. Become something. Understand something. I don't need to know. I don't need to know how to get rid of this feeling. Then you become like a mountain. It's just a natural being. And that's exactly what feels like freedom. It's actually wrong to say it feels like freedom, because freedom is the freedom of feelings. Even though feelings arise, they have nothing to do with you. Because it is recognized that this you is just a construct made by the brain. There's no entity in the brain controlling the brain. When you are aware of this, that you, the one that's aware of it, is not a person, but it's just you're aware that the organism that you thought you were is an organism that is operating all by itself. You see how there are actually no animals, people, entities. You see, because when you look at a tree, you don't say that it's an entity. It's just an expression of nature. But it's the same for animals and people, and also buildings. So there's only this free-flowing life in which apparently some people suffer and want to awaken into the obvious nature that there's no one. And yeah, free from knowledge, knowing that you don't need to know how to do things. It happens. Or this constant chattering in the mind is not needed in order to do intelligent tasks. It's really not needed. It's really not who you are.